Hi there, this is Eshu. I'm the abbot here at Zenwest Buddhist Society. This Living Zen-podcast is just one of the many resources we've created at Zenwest to make Zen practice and training more available and accessible to people all over the world. Instructional videos, printable resources, and much, much more are also available on our website at www.zenwest.ca. If you're a regular listener, I'd love to hear from you. So please drop me an email at office@zenwest.ca and let me know who you are, how you got started, and what brought you to Zen. Everything we make available in person and online at Zenwest is only possible because of the support of our members and associates, people like you. If the efforts of our community are making a difference in your life, I'd like to invite you to show your support and take part in making it happen by becoming an associate or member of the Zenwest Sangha. You can do this by clicking the Join Us tab on our website at www.zenwest.ca. Thank you for your support, and thanks for listening.
Second day of Sesshin. I'll be reading from the book of Rinzai, Linjilu it's called in Chinese, or the Rinzai Roku in Japanese. Jishu, Teaching the Assembly, Chapter 10. At the evening gathering, the Master said to the monks, "Sometimes the person is deprived, but not the conditions. Sometimes the conditions are deprived, but not the person. Sometimes both the person and the conditions are deprived. Sometimes neither the person nor the conditions are deprived." Then a monk asked, "What do you mean by the person is deprived but not the conditions?" The Master said, "Warm sunshine completely covers the earth like brocade. A child's hair hangs down white as silk threads." The monk asked, "What do you mean by the conditions are deprived but not the person?" The Master said, "The orders of the king are spread throughout the nation. The general guards the borders. There is no war nearby." The monk again asked, "What do you mean by both the person and the conditions are deprived?" The Master said, "All communication is cut off between the empire and the region of He and Fun. The regions become independent." The monk asked, "What do you mean by neither the person nor the conditions are deprived?" The Master said, "The king ascends the high seat in the palace. The oldsters enjoy singing peaceful songs." Something that one of you said to me yesterday brought up this chapter of the Rinzai record. And when I pulled out the record and looked at the chapter, I realized it's been a really long time since I've given any talk on the record of Rinzai. The only place I really find it appropriate to sort of bust into the Rinzai record is during Sesshin, and we only do one a year. And I think last year I just every day spoke about koans from the gateless barrier. So every time I open up the record of Rinzai, it's like meeting an old friend. The tradition that we practice in is the Rinzai tradition. And the Rinzai tradition is called the Rinzai tradition because of this teacher, Rinzai. And the reason, or the reason that we're called the Rinzai school is because the tone and the flavor of our particular school of practice was so influenced by this single teacher. And even though it's been many generations since Rinzai, or Linji, as his name is pronounced in Chinese, still to this day, the flavor, the tone of Linji's Zen can be and really should be found in our practice every day, in the way that we go about doing our sesshin, go about doing our practice, go about investigating the nature of this cosmic activity, what's going on, what's unfolding in front of us. This chapter 10, is very famous in Zen circles, and it's referred to as the four what's it called? The four. It's Rinzai's four conditions, or four circumstances. And he proposes this set of four conditions as being a sort of a way of understanding how the manifestations, the activity of this cosmos interacts, makes relationship. These four formats, or these four variables, or these four transformations, I think they can be applied to every circumstance and every interaction and every relationship and every individual interplay that we have within a relationship, whether that's with another human being or whether that's with an object or whether that's with an environment. Some translations talk about or translate this. It's not sometimes the person is deprived but not the condition. It says sometimes I take away the person but not the conditions. Sometimes I take away the conditions but not the person. Sometimes I take both the person and the conditions away. And sometimes I take neither the person nor the conditions. And when Linji says I in that translation, I think it's important for each of us to stand up in the position of Linji, to stand up in the person of the speaker. And when we investigate our interactions in the world, it can help, or it can be very instructive, reflective, to be aware of this teaching, of these four divisions, or four, the word will come to me eventually. So Rinzai says, at the evening gathering, the master said to the monks. So first of all, the evening gathering. Traditionally in this training temple that Linji ran, there were two meetings. One was in the morning, and one was in the evening. The ones that are in the morning, earlier in the day, they have a very different tone, and it's almost like we do sanzen, we do interview. But these other interactions that we have earlier in the day, they're much more dynamic. This evening meeting is where we have a little bit of back and forth, and the master spends some time explaining or talking or giving teisho. The earlier meetings in the day are usually more dynamic. There's a lot more mondo or dharma combat. And I'll just read a quick, a couple of great examples. Chapter 1 of the Jodo, the morning meetings. Counselor O, the commandery governor of the prefecture, and the other officers invited the master to ascend the high seat. The master ascended to the seat and said, "Today this mountain monk has no choice but to follow the counselor's request and ascend to this very seat. If I were to present the essence of the patriarch's great matter, I could not even open my mouth, and there wouldn't be a place for you to stand. Today, being urged by the counselor, how could this mountain monk conceal the essential doctrine of our school? Are there any outstanding practitioners or battle-hardened generals who dare stand against me? Come out and prove yourself for everybody to see." A monk asked. So this is how he opens. "Bring it!" And a monk steps forward and asks, "What is the essence of Buddha Dharma?" The master shouted, "Hats!" The monk bowed. The master said, "This monk is a worthy opponent." A monk asked, "Master, of what house is the tune you sing? Whose style of Zen do you succeed?" The master said, "When I was at Obaku's place, I questioned 3 times, and I was hit 3 times. The monk was going to say something. The master shouted and hit him, saying, "You can't hammer a nail into the empty sky." So, that's a sort of example of the morning meeting. In the evening, I think most of us would probably like to go to the evening meeting more. It's a little safer there. People get hit remarkably less. And the master even composes some lovely poetry in the evening in response to the questions. I think that's a little... I guess there's different tones. Maybe he gets tired in the evening and resorts to poetry. Either way, this tool, this exposition, I guess, of the forms of manifestation is something that comes up over and over again with Rinzai or with Linji. And it has a few different formats, but this is the basic format, just as it's laid out here. Sometimes the person is deprived, but not the conditions. Sometimes the conditions are deprived, but not the person. Sometimes both the person and the conditions are deprived. Sometimes neither the person nor the conditions are deprived. So, in order for us to really investigate this, we have to step outside of our conceptual thinking, our conceptual way of thinking about the world. And we have to rest in our own direct experience of our mind, of our heart, of this unfolding activity of our lives itself. The monk asked, "What do you mean by the person is deprived, but not the conditions?" The master said, "Warm sunshine completely covers the earth like brocade. A child's hair hangs down white as silk threads." To talk about this in experience, the master gives an example which is something that we each have to investigate. Now we have to remember that at this time, Linji is teaching in China, ancient China. So the examples that he's going to give are examples that are applicable to living in ancient China. But I think one of the most wonderful things about Sesshin is, and this first line is, it's probably one of my favorite single lines of poetry in Zen. Warm sunshine completely covers the earth like brocade. I think anybody that has sat Sesshin and has found themselves sort of dozing through a sunny afternoon in the Zendo and has had the opportunity or the luck to sort of come to and to just see like this. Sunshine filtering through the bamboo screen on the floor. Such a simple thing. But it's just this kind of thing that Linji is pointing to. It's just a simple thing. But there are times where it's not just a simple thing. There are times in those dozy afternoons where the breathtaking beauty of that simple thing, the sun shining through the blind and dappling the floor, the sun filtering through the leaves on the path and covering this world with brocade. And we are there as people. We're there sitting in the Zendo. We're there walking down the trail. We're there witnessing this utter beauty. The conditions, the distinction of the conditions it disappears, and we're overwhelmed in our place of being I, overwhelmed by this revelation of the manifestation of the cosmos. The second line of the poem, I think, is also, it's just a child's hair hangs down white as silk threads. Now this is for many people, this is a very confusing line, particularly when we take into consideration that Linji is teaching in China. So how many Chinese children have long, white, silky hair? That's a great question. But if you picture a child, a Chinese child, and if you take that child out into that same sunshine on a sunny afternoon and stand them into this sunshine, what happens to their hair? That shine, you've just got to be there to see. You can't talk about it or give an image of it, because it doesn't make sense that a person with black, shiny hair in the sun, their hair goes white. It's the reflected, magnificence of the sun itself. Just as with this silk brocade, we are overwhelmed. And it's not just the sun. There's many things we can have this experience with. Sometimes it's a flower that we see. Sometimes it's just a tree swaying in the breeze, or an eagle floating on the wind, or a sunset. Sometimes it's a sound the song of a bird, and just the breathtaking beauty of it makes our breath catch, makes our hearts swell. But it's like seeing it from a distance. We are there. I am standing up presently observing. It's there. What a beautiful sound. What a beautiful sight. How beautiful. And words cannot catch that. So that's the first. The person is deprived, but not the condition. Explain this backwards. In that moment, the sight that we're seeing absorbs us, takes our breath away. The conditions overwhelm us. The second is, the monk asks, what do you mean by the conditions are deprived but not the person? The master said, the orders of the king are spread throughout the nation. The general guards the borders. There is no war nearby. For those of us who have been involved in officer training, for example, I think this is a great one. The Jikijitsu is a place where this happens. The Ino or the Shika is a place where this happens. And likewise, as parents, this experience happens a great number of times. Any time where we're involved in a circumstance and we're required to manifest independently, or we're required to manifest with activity or action so strongly that the circumstances evaporate. The circumstance that we're in evaporates. Time and space and the environment and who's watching, it evaporates. And there is only this action. When we're Jikijitsu, sometimes it's just in making a correction. We can be toiling about, should I make this correction or shouldn't I, and what will people think, and all this kinds of stuff. And something arises, a circumstance arises, and we manifest so wholeheartedly that everything external, everything outside disappears. As a parent, I've experienced this myself. Anytime my child is in imminent danger, and there's a requirement of a wholehearted response, it's not even like that makes it sound so considered. Requires a wholehearted response. There is no wholehearted response. There is nothing else but just getting there, just showing up, just manifesting, bang, with the circumstance. We hear all these great reports on Ripley's Believe It or Not and things like this, of parents who lift cars off their children and do all kinds of fight off cougars and all this kind of thing. And what we have to realize is that this is what Linji is pointing to, because in that moment there is no car there. in that moment, there is no clear there. There is only this whole manifestation, this completely one-side completion that Rinzai calls the conditions are deprived, but not the person. The orders of the king are spread through the nation. The general guards the borders. There is no war nearby. The monk asked again, "What do you mean by both the person and the conditions are deprived?" All communication is cut off between the empire and the region of He and Fun. The regions become independent. This experience, this particular experience is what's traditionally called the manifestation of zero, emptiness. And when we talk about this, I spoke about it at great length yesterday during Joshu's Mu. But when we talk about this or when we investigate this, this is something that each of us can, for ourselves, verify. In our practice, as we go through this session, there will be moments where we are completely absorbed by the circumstances. Crystal clear of the sound of the rooster crowing, crystal clear in the sound or in the sun shining through the blinds on the floor, crystal clear in the smell of incense or in the taste of some fruit. Wow! Nothing else but just this wow. There will be moments where we completely lose the environment. Maybe the pain in our legs leads us there to this manifestation where I don't care what's going on around me. There is only this difficulty. There is only this single activity that I'm engaged in. And there will be moments in which the I am self, the one who's concerned about my legs and the one who's concerned about what's to eat and the one that's concerned about what's next on the schedule, disappears, completely drops away. Simultaneously, our awareness, our differentiation of our environment also drops away. Where do we go? This question is of fundamental importance. I've been carrying the Keisaku during several of the sits today, and the Keisaku practice is a wonderful tool, and it's one of the reasons that I have never even questioned dispensing with it. Many Zen centers have chosen to eliminate the Keisaku as some kind of barbaric punishment tool that belongs to the medieval era. My personal perspective is that it's a very powerful tool. And just like any powerful tool, you have to really look at how it's used and why it's used, and to use it with awareness of that power. One of the things that I find most fascinating about the Keisaku is that it acts as a catalyst for our emotions, for our awareness, and it forcibly drags our sense of self into the Zendo. So much so that I think at times, it doesn't really matter whether you choose to have the Keisaku used or not. The presence of the Keisaku in the Zendo is often enough for people. There is some pretty primal stuff going on when there is a person with a stick walking around in a room whacking people. And as long as we're sitting there in the room, we can be tired and we can be sore and we can want to really ditch. We can really want to start fantasizing and getting out of here, avoiding what's going on here, thinking about this and that. But when there's a person walking around with a stick in the room, it's very fascinating to watch how it's actually quite difficult to leave. It's difficult to sort of check out and start fantasizing and thinking about something else. But, as I have proven for myself many times, it's not impossible. Many is the time where I've been sitting and I see the jockey, the person carrying the stick, over standing still, and I think, oh, Keisaku, good. Begin to sit. And then the next time my awareness bubbles up to the surface, I see feet right in front of me, and sometimes I'm successful and sometimes I'm not at giving a little, how did that happen? Where did they come from? And when I was training, I remember a lot of people talking about different instructions for the Keisaku. And one of the rumors or one of the myths about the Keisaku is that this is a tool that's used to hit sleeping monks, to wake up sleeping monks. And the only instruction I ever heard that was given by Joshu Sasaki about using the stick and people who are asleep in the Zendo was that if you're carrying the Keisaku and there is somebody who's totally asleep in the Zendo, you should never hit them. He said, if the Keisaku is being carried and a person is able to become so relaxed that they are falling asleep, then they've completely let go of themselves. They've completely forgotten self-concern, and they're manifesting perfect emptiness. And I was always amazed at the number of times, this is the one instruction I heard about using the Keisaku, and I heard it over and over again, but always the Jikijitsu would whack the person who was nodding and sleeping in the Zendo. But when we are in this state, whether it's through sleep or whether it's just through our meditation, oftentimes we feel like we're doing something wrong, not in the moment when it's happening, but that moment right after the self-consciousness, the self-awareness is born again. We think, oh, where was I? I wasn't aware. We think, oh, I wasn't totally crisp and here and with what's going on. I must be doing something wrong. Even though over and over again we have this teaching of emptiness, which we say that has as its content all things, and there is no separation, there is no differentiation, there is nothing standing outside of it to talk about it or to witness it. And even though I talk about this, and this is spoken about in our tradition over and over and over again, somehow we still expect to see emptiness. We still expect to recognize shunyata. We still expect to be able to say, there's mu. It's kind of absurd, isn't it? And in this state, or in this manifestation, there is no subject, there is no object. There is no communication or messages from one to another, because there is no one and there is no other. And this is the third condition. The monk asked, "What do you mean by neither the person nor the conditions are deprived?" The master said, "The king ascends the high seat in the palace. The oldsters enjoy singing peaceful songs." And this is the manifestation of perfect plus. And this we can experience frequently, I think, or I hope we experience this frequently in Sesshin. And this is, I think, the manifestation that when most of us are practicing meditation, this is the state that I think most people really long for or strive for. And I call it the manifestation of perfect plus because it is a form of completion. One of the ways that it's manifest or demonstrated is in making prostrations. You come in front of the Butsudan and you bring your hands together palm to palm in Gasho, and you're standing in mountain pose, and your posture should be nice and straight. You really can't get any bigger. And this is the manifestation of perfect plus. And in this state, in this posture, in this position, the beginning of the prostration, you're standing and you're facing the Butsudan, you're standing and you're facing the Buddha figure. So in this posture of complete plus, Buddha faces Buddha. Buddha recognizes Buddha. There is nothing lacking. There is nothing missing. There is nothing out of place. And as we're sitting in Zazen and we're sitting in our Sesshin, there will be moments in which everything is just so. The birds are singing, the tenzo is cooking, the people around us are sitting, the sun is shining through the blind, and there's nothing lacking. There's nothing out of place. There's not too much of anything else. It's like a cosmic balance point. This is, there's a complete clarity in who I am and all of my story and all of my history and my physical body. There's an equilibrium. There's a balance in every aspect of the cosmos that is coming in through my senses in this moment. Buddha faces innumerable Buddhas. Buddha recognizes innumerable Buddhas. Nothing is out of place. Nothing is anything other than completely as it should be. And this is what Rinzai is talking about with The king ascends the high seat in the palace, and the oldsters enjoy singing peaceful songs. The king is on his throne, and the villagers are living in peaceful harmony. As we practice, it's very easy to want one of these conditions to be the state of our meditation, to be the state of our lives. We maybe always want to be in this state of perfect balance, or maybe we always want to be in the state of complete emptiness, completely not differentiated, completely dissolved into emptiness, zero. But just like I was talking about, this practice of prostration has these 4 stages as well. So we begin in the state of perfect plus. Buddha faces Buddha. Buddha recognizes Buddha. We are one, but we're completely perfect in our distinctness. Then as we begin the prostration, there is this dissolution. Coming fully to the bottom of the prostration, there is no self, there is no other, there is no inside, there is no outside. We've completely exhaled, dissolved completely. And we find the manifestation of perfect minus, emptiness, formlessness. Having completely reached the bottom of this, having completely emptied out every aspect of this, there's nowhere else for us to go. There's nothing else for us to do but for us to turn, this activity to turn, and for the self to be born. So the body, the I, the separation begins to arise, and we begin to stand up again, new self. And we are partially formed, arising anew again, until we come to completion, the top of the breath. But once we reach the top of the breath, we can't keep breathing in. We can't keep completing once we have come to completion. Again, there's only one way to go, and that is to turn and for that activity to begin of dissolving again. So one of the important things, this is something that comes up in our tradition over and over again, is we can't connect necessarily the in-breath with the plus activity or the minus activity. We can't connect the out-breath to the plus activity or the minus activity. These are both metaphors. They're both ways of understanding this dynamic activity. But it's not to say that the out-breath is the minus activity or the in-breath is the plus activity. I had a conversation with Gente one time about basic instructions of Zazen. And we came through, he was one of Sasaki Roshi's first students. And the instructions that he got were entirely the reverse of the instructions that I got. And to understand this is to say, okay, so the way that I was instructed was, as we inhale is the plus activity, breathing into the I am self, and as we exhale is the minus activity, dissolving out into the cosmos. And the instructions that Gente was given was that when we inhale, This is the cosmos giving, manifesting the minus activity so that the self can be born. And as you exhale, the cosmos inhales again and comes to completion as the complete cosmos. So we have to understand that these, we can't get fixated on a particular idea about a particular aspect of how we are manifesting as being plus or minus or manifestation or dissolution. These two activities are happening simultaneously. As one activity happens, the other activity simultaneously happens. Going the other way, one activity takes place, the other is there to meet it. But this, I think, is for another day show. These four activities. Sometimes the person is deprived, but not the condition. Experience for yourself losing I in external circumstances, in the sound of the bird, in the smell of the incense, in the seeing of leaves on the tree or sun on the floor. Sometimes the conditions are deprived, but not the person. Investigate, experience, manifesting so clearly, so distinctly, so strongly that the environment evaporates. Sometimes both the person and the conditions are deprived. Experience the dissolution of subject and object. It's a funny one. I can't even say experience that because you can't. You can't experience that. Allow that activity, that circumstance to arise. And having returned, having stood up again in differentiation, recognize what's happened. Sometimes neither the person nor the conditions are deprived. I think this one, the two I think are really connected. And it's important because I think that the depth to which we are able to immerse ourselves in dissolution directly impacts our experience of neither the person nor the condition being deprived. That state of fundamental satisfaction, fundamental at easeness, what Rinzai calls buji. Buji basically translates to having nothing to do. And what he means by this is that no matter what we're doing, no matter what we're engaged in, even if we're just sitting on the couch, there's always something to do. We always feel like something could be better. We're always engaged in seeing something else that needs to be done. And what we're talking about, what Rinzai's talking about here with neither the person nor the conditions being deprived, is finding that space of completion. That there is, in this moment, nothing to do. Everything just as it is whole. Everything just as it is complete. There's nowhere else to go. There's nothing else to do. There's just this. And my perspective is that that experience, that awareness, is deeply connected to our experience of complete dissolution, going beyond self. In that experience, there is I can't call it a knowing. It's like there's a resonance. The vastness of this cosmos is felt. It resonates. So that as we come forth and manifest in this world, more and more our doubt dissipates. Whenever we're sitting and thinking, oh, there's one more thing to do, or oh, I need to do that, or oh, wouldn't it be better if it just... This arises from a fundamental doubt of our own capacity, of our own potential, of our own completeness. It arises from this idea that maybe if we just did that, or had that, or pursued that, that somehow we would be more complete. And it's in this experience of dissolution, both the person and the conditions being deprived, that we come to know, right to our core, right to the roots, that you can't make complete more complete. You can't exhale more than you've completely exhaled. You can't improve on something which is fundamentally flawless to begin with. That is the core of what Rinzai is pointing to over and over again. We'll get into another chapter tomorrow, but over and over again, this is what Linji is pointing to. Recognize this activity. Recognize this fourfold activity that's manifest in every aspect of the formal practice that we engage in. And most importantly, it is manifest in every act and every moment of our lives. Don't believe me. And that's fundamental in Zen practice, fundamental with Linji. Don't believe this stuff. Investigate it. What we're doing here is not some religious culty thing where we follow and obey. We're creating a laboratory. We're creating a space and creating the tools to investigate the very nature of our experience as human beings. So don't waste time. Investigate this teaching and see, is it so? Is this your experience? What is your experience?
Thanks for listening to the Living Zen podcast. If you follow Living Zen through iTunes, I would very much appreciate it if you would take a moment to let me know what you think about it by rating or reviewing the podcast, so that new listeners can also hear what you have to say. Thank you for your time and for your support.